Good morning, everyone. I would like to acknowledge or recognize that the area we call the Fraser Valley Regional District has been home to Indigenous peoples for generations. There are 31 communities with reserve lands in the FERD's jurisdiction and as many as 69 groups with interests in the area. We honor our commitment to collaboration, inclusion, and reconciliation and our work here today and call to order the April 10th meeting of the Regional Corporate Services Committee. First item, please, Ms. Kinnaman.
Looking for approval of the agenda and late items.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Moved by Director Fazio, second by Director Castle. All in favor? Motion's carried. Next item.
4.1 is the draft Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting minutes of March 13th, 2025.
Move Director Clute, second Director Smith. All in favor? Motion's carried. Next item.
5.1 is Financial Plan 2025 to 2029 amendment for April. There is a motion for your consideration.
Okay, moved by, I think, Director McConnell. Were you moving it or wanting to speak? Yeah, and then Director Horn. All right, you want to speak to it, Ms. McConnell? No, you just moving it? Okay, cool. Anyone wish to speak to it? Doesn't look like it. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next item.
6.1.1 is the Regional Zero Emissions Mobility Strategy. This is an information report, but happy to answer any questions.
Director Clute.
Not so much a question, just a thank you for all the work that's gone into this. I can imagine it was a pretty intense project and a very thorough report, so thank you.
Yeah, exciting work. All right, next item.
6.2.1 is the 2025 Regional Economic Review and related initiatives. We do have a presentation from staff today.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Riley. I'm a planner in the Strategic Planning and Initiatives Department, and I'm here today to present on the 2025 Regional Economic Review and our related initiatives. So the Regional Economic Review is a high-level overview and analysis of the region's economic makeup and labor force, where we are evaluating trends, current characteristics, and describing the opportunities and challenges facing our economy now and into the future. It is intended to complement plans and policies and reports by our member municipalities by providing a regional perspective. It also provides a broad economic context and the necessary basis to inform subsequent reports that will be produced by the Strategic Planning Department. So as of December 2024, there were over 13,000 businesses in the FRD with at least one employee. That is an increase of 2,568 since 2014. Most of these businesses were small. About 76% of them had fewer than 10 employees. However, larger employers, those with 50 or more employees, grew at a faster rate. Large business growth was led by the healthcare sector, which added 32 businesses with at least 50 employees, while manufacturing accounted for the most number of businesses employing 100 or more people at 31, emphasizing their significant contribution to local employment. Overall, construction is by far the top sector in the FRD in terms of business counts, followed by retail trade, healthcare, agriculture, and transportation and warehousing. The most growth was led by the construction sector, which increased by 564 businesses within the last decade. Healthcare and transportation and warehousing also experienced significant gains, while the manufacturing sector and retail trade experienced slight growth. There was actually a decrease in the number of businesses in the agriculture, fishing, forestry, and hunting sectors, which decreased by 107, causing it to move from being the FRD's second highest ranked sector to its fourth highest ranked sector in terms of business counts. This may be a reflection of the consolidation of smaller farms, as the number of farms in the FRD has been decreasing. So when it comes to commuter flow, having a higher number of local workers puts money back into local economies supporting businesses, and thus increasing the region's economic strength and resilience. This data is showing the percentage of residents commuting to work within their own municipality, or EA, highlights that internal commute rates in Chilliwack and Abbotsford were much higher at 66 and 65% respectively than most Metro Vancouver municipalities. On the highest end, we have Hope at 74%, Electoral Area A at 100%, likely reflective of their geographic isolation and maybe a smaller sample size. Lower percentages, as seen in many electoral areas, indicates that many residents are commuting outside of their jurisdiction for work. For example, areas E and D at 8 and 7% respectively see most of their residents commuting to Chilliwack for work. Exports play a key role in driving industry growth, supporting jobs, and fostering connections with international markets. The FRD's two census metropolitan areas, Abbotsford Mission and Chilliwack, exported a combined $2.2 billion worth of goods in 2023, with the majority of that coming from the manufacturing sector. In total, about 89% of that went to the US. A recent analysis by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce ranked Abbotsford Mission and Chilliwack as the two most vulnerable cities in BC to US tariffs. You can see in the table below a comparison to Vancouver, where Abbotsford Mission and Chilliwack were at 90.7% of their total exports went to the US, and Chilliwack with 85.9% of their total exports went to the US. Vancouver's was lower at 72.1%. But you can see in the US export value as a percentage rate of the total GDP was a lot lower, so reaching only as high as 12.4% in Abbotsford Mission. I'll now discuss our two other initiatives coming later this year, the Regional Commercial Real Estate Market Overview and the Regional Industrial Lands Inventory. So the Regional Commercial Real Estate Market Overview is a detailed analysis of commercial real estate transactions in Abbotsford, Chilliwack, and Mission, where we are assessing trends and metrics across different commercial building and land types while making useful comparisons to Metro Vancouver. It is an assessment of market activity throughout the Lower Mainland and will provide valuable insight into how the FRD stands in relation to Metro Vancouver. I have two graphs from our analysis here to show you. The top one is the average price per square foot of industrial building space from 2005 to 2024, where we are comparing the FRD and the MVRD. Up until about 2017, the average price per square foot of industrial building space has hovered around $100 in the FRD, but since 2017 has increased significantly, in line with Metro Vancouver, but still remaining more affordable. And the bottom graph is even more stark. This is the average price per acre of industrial land. And you can see in the FRD has gone from $142,500 in 2005 to over $3 million in 2024, most of that increase occurring after 2017, while it is aligned with Metro Vancouver, but significantly more affordable. Our third initiative is the Regional Industrial Lands Inventory. So Metro Vancouver anticipates that the last of their effective industrial land supply will be absorbed sometime between 2028 and 2035. They identified evidence that larger distribution and manufacturing facilities are already relocating outside of Metro Vancouver simply because there are few large industrial sites available today or likely to be available in the future to meet their needs. And as a result, businesses are increasingly looking beyond Metro Vancouver, with the Fraser Valley is a viable and more affordable option. Of course, that has also put pressure on the industrial land supply in the Fraser Valley. Preliminary assessments indicate that the supply of readily available land has decreased as the region's industrial locations are reaching build-up. This is evident when comparing satellite imagery of Clearbrook Industrial Area in Abbotsford from 2017 to 2023, and you can see how much of that land has already been used up in just 5 years, all constrained within the industrial OCP designated area. So establishing an accurate inventory is a critical first step to identifying the location, the current supply, and the degree of utilization and extent of non-industrial uses. Work is well underway with the bulk of spatial data processing is complete and initial results are ready for review. In the coming months, we will be reaching out to municipalities to ensure that our methodology is aligned with and accurate, keeping in mind potential updates to OCPs. So in this inventory, we're at a very basic level, identifying industrial areas that are either designated in the local OCP, zoned in the local bylaw, or both. To streamline this processing, we've designed a series of models in Esri's ArcGIS Pro software to create a semi-automatic workflow, which will significantly reduce processing time and ensure that future inventories that can be conducted consistently, leading to more comparable results. Consider it an assembly line of sorts. This model takes the municipal OCP and zoning inputs and outputs identified industrial lands on a parcel by parcel basis in just a few minutes. It is repeatable, meaning we could substitute updated OCP data and run that through to update the results. So in conclusion, these three initiatives were developed to complement one another in succession. The Regional Economic Review offers a high-level overview of the regional economy, tracking trends in key indicators such as labor force and business counts. The Regional Commercial Real Estate Market Overview analyzes changes in land and building transactions over time, comparing municipalities in the FUD and Metro Vancouver. While the Regional Industrial Lands Inventory is a comprehensive look at industrial lands, identifying how much exists and how it's being used. Together, these initiatives strengthen our understanding of the region's growing economy and highlight pressure on the region's industrial land supply. In doing so, it provides valuable context for engaging with the province and advocating for long-term economic resilience. Importantly, these reports can be updated over time or built upon through future research and data collection, continuing to support planning and policy discussions moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great work there. It's a lot of a really good overview of our vulnerabilities as well as our exciting potential. So thank you. I do have a question, but I'll let the other board members go first. Do you have any questions? Director McElhannock?
Not so much a question, but I really, really enjoyed reading it. Really great work and really comprehensive. I think it'll be useful for me as well. I really commend you on a really thorough report. So thank you.
Thanks.
Director Pranger?
My question is more on the agricultural side. You said that the number of farms had decreased, but the size of the farms have increased, have they not? And is the output still as high or even higher?
Yeah, through the chair to Director Pranger. Yeah, I think it's just a consolidation of smaller farms. So the total number of farms has been decreasing. Thus, you sort of maybe have larger farms taking over. But I believe that the agricultural revenues have increased over time. I think the last data we have is from 2020, and that shows, we have billions of dollars in agricultural revenues. But yeah, I believe that the agricultural output is still increasing despite, maybe some consolidation of smaller farms.
Yeah. Director Horn?
Yes, as others have said, I think it's an extremely informative report. I can't wait to share it with our Economic Development Advisory Committee in the community in our city, as well as with senior admin and other council members. The one thing that I note that was of particular interest is table 4.1, page 27, which is a comparison of the highest educational attainment between us and Metro Vancouver. And recognizing that the data is from StatsCan's last census in 2021, it may have changed somewhat. I'm struck by how different the level is in the amount of university certificate, degree, or diploma we have, and just some of the flux that's going on there. So, a first observation is I'll be interested in seeing what happens in the next census.
Yeah.
But as you talked about the three things that we do, the one thing that struck me is that, obviously at a regional level, we don't have the resources to do economic development functions. We have to do that more at the municipal level, or in partnership with chambers of commerce. But I wondered about our advocacy to the province on post-secondary education. I wondered about whether or not we were sharing this data in some organized format with UFV, or whether or not we had gotten this data from them to some extent, because I think there's a demand or interest within our communities to ensure that UFV is responsive to our community needs. They certainly work hard to try and be that, and also to see if we can further enhance other partnerships that might come into our region. So in a nutshell, my question is, have we got any kind of strategy in terms of communicating out that we need to increase the amount of education post-secondarily in our communities as a part of economic development?
Through the chair, Director Horn, I'm not aware that we're currently working on any sort of thing. I think that we definitely could, if UFV or on our own part, to reach out to them to share this data. Yeah, I don't know if Allison has anything to share.
Yes, through the chair. Several years ago, when we did the Clean Economy Study, UFB was part of that group that we worked with on developing that plan. So I think this study or this report can add to that, and we can reintroduce ourselves to UFB and talk to them about how we can work together on building these economic sort of sharing those goals.
Perfect. I think that'd be fantastic, Ms. Stewart. I whether we need a motion or not, I'll leave to Ms. Kinnaman. I do think we should be reaching out to share this this review and asking them whether they're interested in chatting at any level about, as you said, refreshing those goals. Whatever way as a board we can support that, I'm sure there would be support.
Good suggestion. Did you have any thoughts, Ms. Kinnaman? Do we need a motion for that, or it's just?
I guess through the chair, my suggestion on any issues of advocacy really are best brought forward from the board table. Something of that nature. We don't have an economic development function per se. We don't particularly have a role in any one of these areas in terms of pushing forward anything outside of the board giving us that direction. And so I would just suggest that perhaps the Intergovernmental Relations Committee might be a good space to have some of those conversations as we move forward with our advocacy plan.
Great. Thank you. Director Clute.
Thank you, through the chair to the speaker. Thank you for you and your team for all the hard work. Really interesting report to read through. I guess one of the questions I have is in the next phase or the next steps, will we be also looking at with distribution, manufacturing, and processing, how much of that has left the Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley?
Through the chair, Director Clute, I think our whole purpose in doing these initiatives is to sort of build the basis for any future work. With the inventory, we're just identifying, like, on a very high level, how much land exists, how it's being used, and if there's non-industrial uses taking place on that land. Once we build that sort of basis of that inventory, we can certainly use it moving forward. If we do an inventory, let's say every 5 years or something, we can see how that land has been increasing or decreasing. But as far as the businesses, I'm not aware that we have the ability to sort of flush out like specific, uses if they're leaving or not.
Okay. And then the information that's provided through the report, when did that, was that through the last census of, when was the last census? 2021?
Yeah, 2021. Most of it is from 2021, but there are more up-to-date data sources in there, such as the business counts. They're from they get updated every 6 months. They're from December 2024. So it really just depends on the topic. In some cases, there are more up-to-date data available that we could be using, but to sort of have a regional perspective, it's more consistent to use the census data. because a lot of the times the StatsCan only releases data for the FRD's 2 CMAs, that's Abbotsford and Mission and Chilliwack. So we don't get the full regional picture if we don't use the census data.
And do you know offhand the worrisome trend of agriculture? Is that from stats from 2021 or from updated from the 2024?
So yeah, like that number of the decreasing farms is just from, I think, the 2011, 2016, and then 2020 census. So it has really been decreasing over, the last 10 years, basically from 2020 to 2011.
Okay. And as a farmer, it's not super surprising to me. This is one of the most difficult places with the cost of land to produce food, but it is a very worrisome trend when we have a FERD that has significant is the breadbasket of British Columbia. And, I think when the next census comes out, the last year has produced a lot more uncertainty in the agriculture world with the avian flu crisis, with tariff threats, with land speculation costs, with now several ATR processes underway on agricultural land. So, it's disheartening to see, but not surprising. Thank you again for all of that.
Dr. Dickey?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the great report. Just amazing, these numbers around the value of industrial land and how that's run up.
Yeah.
So well over $3 million an acre. I'm guessing that reflects the intersection of supply and demand. Have we looked at comparisons with other areas like Calgary, and are we pricing ourselves out of that market?
Through the chair to Director Dickey, I think like our data that we have available to us as far as commercial real estate transactions is only in the Greater Vancouver area. So we only have access to Metro Vancouver municipalities and FERD municipalities. But we could certainly look at the various investor reports that are available from firms like Colliers or CBRE, and we can definitely compare what's happening in Abbotsford and Chilliwack versus other Canadian cities, such as Calgary or Toronto. I think a lot of these businesses that are relocating out of Metro Vancouver are actually picking cities like Calgary, just because it's a lot more affordable and there's a lot more land available. But yeah.
It would seem like there are industries that are associated with, for instance, the Vancouver port that have to be located here. But if you're building some kind of industrial machinery or something, it would seem like you'd take it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Dr. Pranger?
Thank you, through the chair. Just more two comments rather than questions. Thank you for your report, by the way.
Thanks.
In 1972, when the Agricultural Land Commission was formed, there was also at that time plans for industrial land commission, which never happened. And that has had somewhat of an impact on the amount of industrial land we have still available. And the second thing went on education. When we talk about our transit system, let's keep in mind that the Fraser Valley is farther away from, other than the UFV, from educational institutions, and how we address transit and connect with the universities that way, I think is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question was on oh, sorry, Dr. Siemens, I didn't see your hand there. Thank you. I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, great report, and it really does articulate some of the challenges that we're facing in the city of Abbotsford on the industrial land challenges that are, and we've been banging on that for a while now. And so I'm hoping that this report also will help us in our advocacy work, not just regionally, but also for the city. the challenge that we have with the housing affordability is people still need good jobs. And when I take a look at, 65% of the people that live in our two largest cities, work within those jurisdictions, that's something that I think we really need to keep an eye on to continue that trend and to even grow it, because there's an environmental impact, there's a quality of life impact if you have to commute. And so the employment lands are intrinsically tied to housing affordability issues. And so we just need to really be advocating to the province for that, because if we lose that balance and we start to become a commuter cities, there's a whole host of challenges that go with that, including losing your ability to build a community that's cohesive. And when I take a look at, places like Mission, they're commuting probably by and large to the Abbotsford and maybe Langley. So the commutes maybe aren't that long for them, but the longer we have to drive into where the jobs are, or if we're losing opportunities to other provinces because of the cost of industrial land, and cost of industrial land in Whatcom County is a lot cheaper. So if this tariff nonsense continues for too long, short term, we're probably going to be okay, but long term, we're going to lose a lot of people from this side of the border to relocate. And those relocations, once they happen, they're not going to come back. So we've got some real issues that we have to really keep an eye on. And I think this report will help us with that advocacy work. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, now that's my question. So under the list of the industry sectors, I would have thought that aerospace would have been listed as an industry. We have a pretty big airport in Abbotsford and a whole industry around that. Aside from just the airport, we have one in Chilliwack, one in Hope. So I guess I was just curious why aerospace wouldn't have its own category. Is it listed under transportation? But I'm not sure it entirely fits there.
Through the chair to Director Ross. Yeah, so aerospace would be included into one of these categories. I don't know off the top of my head which category that is in. I believe it would likely be in transportation. But these are like the broad categories. And then the way that the data is broken down is you can actually see more and more detail going down, which is, and in one of those categories, it would be aerospace.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other questions. Did we have a motion on that? It was for information only, just information. All right, we'll move on to the next item.
Item 7.1 is the social media policy update. There is a motion for your consideration.
Do we have a mover? Moved by Director Clute, seconder, Director Horn. Seeing no, Director Horn.
Yes, support the changes. And looking through the markup document, I see a list of some of the potential platforms. In Mission, we're on the cusp of making a decision about whether some platforms will continue to be used. And in particular, Twitter X is in our line of sight because it seems to, first of all, there's obviously some sensitivities with some folks around the ownership and its connection to the U.S. federal government. I'm not as concerned about that as much as I'm concerned with what appears to be a high level of foreign manipulation. The bots, the false accounts, the amount of skewing of just about any messaging on that platform seems to be worse than just about than most others. I wondered, and it's a question I suppose for my colleagues to think about or give me their thoughts on whether online or offline, for when this comes to the regional board, whether or not we should be thinking about pausing the use of that platform or looking at that at another time. I think my council is working in the direction of likely getting rid of that platform. Because the data we have shows we have very little engagement relative to the other social media platforms we use. It's highly consumptive of staff time to use it and then to deal with the offshoots when something bad happens. And it does tend to happen because people can retweet you and change your message so readily. So a question, I guess, I'll go through the chair to Ms. Kinnaman, see if there's been any discussion about that, but also just wanted to make it a conversation point. Again, don't want to take all the time of the committee today, but if people are supportive of us looking at not having that particular platform, I'd be happy to bring that to the board meeting.
Thank you. Any
Sure.
comments?
I think actually we'll turn this one over to Sam Piper, our manager of communications.
Through the chair to the director, that is a common thought that's running through the communications department and being shared. We're currently monitoring and watching other local governments and municipalities in their approach. So I anticipate and welcome direction from the board on that topic. Thank you.
Thank you. I've deleted my account there. So.
If I can just further add, I think that the last point that you made, Director Horn, in terms of engagement, when you think about the genesis of social media and the opportunities that it presented organizations such as ours to share messaging, that's evolved quite a bit over time. I'm not entirely certain that some of the platforms have as much relevance as they maybe did at a certain point in time. And so really trying to narrow in and make the best use of the tools that folks are using to get local government information.
Thank you. Okay, Director Davidson.
I had a different topic to speak to about the logo. I don't know if I should bring it forward now or just
Sure.
go ahead. Okay. So on the members not permitted to use the FERD logo, just one observation I have is that I put out an email distribution list, which as I read the policy is not considered social media. And of course that has my signature block, which has the logo. In turn, that gets relayed onto Facebook pages. And I also see other Facebook people who are basically scraping FERD content, which often contains a logo. So I get the intent of members not using the logo is to basically ensure that the member is not purporting to speak on behalf of the FERD. But I think the reality is that you're going to see the FERD logo on social media regardless by one way or the other. So it's just an observation. Thank you.
You, Dr. Castle.
Thank you, Chair Ross. Just a clarification, I'm looking on the track changes document under Part 1 principles. It does appear that Twitter has been struck, where it says this means one official Facebook account, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and then Twitter has been struck. So have we in fact already decided that we're going to get rid of our Twitter account?
Through the chair to Director Castle. No definitive decision has been made at this time. We're in a monitoring type of stage waiting for direction. The striking was to clean up the language in that dated policy.
Perfect, thank you. But based on that, it appears that the policy will not include a Twitter account.
If I can just provide some clarification, sometimes I think it's difficult when you're looking at those track changes documents. Under the section of has a subhead of social media, you'll note that there is a long list of networks, and X is included there. It's just not referenced as the former name of Twitter.
Okay, I get it. Yep. Thank you for that. And then also with regards to Director Davidson's question, I don't know that sharing, if the logo appears in a shared post, I don't think that's what we're going after with the policy around the logo. Am I correct? If we share a post and the post has the logo on it, I'm assuming that's all right.
Sam, did you want to take that one?
Sure, through the chair to Director Castle. We're looking for best practices and understand that there may be circumstances that, yes, the logo is being shared through posts or, but we're looking to protect our branding, and the logo is a very large part of that. So looking for best practices at this point.
And I can just further add that there are regularly situations that are brought forward to our attention, sometimes by board members, sometimes by members of the public, where there may even just be an unintended use of our logo that could give the appearance that an organization or entity is speaking on our behalf. In some of those instances, we're able to work with the individuals that are the administrators of those sites and ask them to please no longer use the logo in that manner. It is an ongoing challenge, but we certainly appreciate it when it's brought forward to our attention.
Director Horn.
Just I was going to ask, Madam Chair, would you come back to me after we deal with this one? I'll make a motion that will bring this to the larger board.
After
After
this
we deal with
motion?
the one that
Okay.
we have.
All right, seeing no other speakers, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. So Director Horn.
As the motion will be that we ask staff to provide a recommendation on social media platforms that provide the best message integrity and civic engagement value for the board at a future date.
Do we have a seconder? Director Clute. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, next item.
Next is 7.2, which is the media relations policy update.
Do we have a mover? Moved by Director Clute, second Director Popov. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Director Davidson.
Right, thank you. I do have some questions about the procedure section. So I had a couple of media encounters last year, my first ones ever, so it was all very new to me. I'm just trying to understand what the intent is as it relates to EA directors like myself. So the first one was that Mission City Record reached out to me for an interview. I let Sam Piper know. She gave me some very helpful tips on what to do and what not to do. And away I went. The interview came and went, but at no point was at least to my knowledge, was the chair involved for the procedure or like the procedure. What actually happened seems to be different than what the procedure was calling for. The second event was in the fall, where I was contacted by Bell Puri of CBC, saying they were interviewing some residents in my area, illegal fill, and would I consent to being interviewed as well? I said, sure. I had like 2 days notice. I went there and I was interviewed. So as I sort of line up those two events against the procedure that's laid out here, I have a question in my mind is, okay, what should have happened that didn't happen? And leads to sort of a broader topic as to what extent are individual EA directors, entitled to participate in media events with or without board sanction? Can we even initiate them on our own dime if we feel it appropriate to do so? I do have one other question about the role of the chair of EASC as spokesperson, but I guess that's my first sort of general question back to staff, what the intent of this policy is for everything I just kind of laid out.
Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure, I can tackle that one. In practical terms, there is no change to the process. This has always been the process that the chair of the Fraser Valley Regional District Board is the media spokesperson. I can't speak specifically to those two instances, but I feel pretty confident that that request did go through the chair behind the scenes, whether you were aware of it or not. If you forward a request to participate in a media interview to staff, to manager of communications, or to the CAO, we always 100% of the time check with the chair of the board first to make sure that they are comfortable having the EA director speak on behalf of this organization. So that likely happened. I'm not certain if it happened in both of those instances. If the interview with Val Puri did not come to staff first, it's possible that that you acted outside of the policy. So in general terms, I would say that for most local issues happening in electoral areas, it's been my experience here that the chair of the board is quite happy to defer to the elected person in that community to participate in the meeting interview if they so wish. But the intention here is really just to ensure, one, that we are speaking with one voice as the federation that we are, and making sure that we're not engaging and representing the board on topics that are either not relevant to local government or perhaps don't represent the views of the organization.
Yeah, and I know
So-
there were, I'm new in this role, but there have been a couple of instances where the EA director was requested an interview, and it has been brought to me, and I was offered the option of speaking to it, but I just deferred. I did defer to the EA directors, but I did appreciate being in the loop and knowing what's going on, and I didn't get any surprises later on. So, next speaker. Oh, sorry, you had another question, Director Davidson.
Just a couple of follow-ups on it. So I guess the distinction I'm trying to get to is as an EA director, I'm still, in my mind, entitled to speak as just an EA director and not on behalf of the board. This procedure, I think, speaks to how I would be able to speak on behalf of the board. But on the rare occasion where I may not be aligned with where the board is, that I still, I'm essentially not muzzled to that point by this procedure, and then I'm still entitled to speak as an EA director, with or without board consent. I just have to be clear as to who I'm speaking on behalf of. So that was just one kind of distinction I'm trying to make sure isn't being lost in this. I did have another question about the chair of the East Committee acting as spokesperson for Part 14 matters. Part 14 relates to land use and planning. It made me wonder that why would Part 12 not be going to the East chair as well, because that's bylaw enforcement. It struck me as something that's specific to electoral areas as well.
Did you want to comment, Ms. Kinnaman?
I'll tackle the first part for sure. I guess my recommendation and staff's recommendation really is that there are going to be situations where EA directors may want to initiate their own media that don't necessarily reflect a position of the board, or they find themselves in a matter that's not necessarily local government related. And what we encourage those EA directors to do is to make it very clear in those instances that they are coming forward as a citizen and not as a representative of the organization. Unfortunately, I think probably 100% of the time, what happens in the ultimate news story is that it shows up at the bottom of the screen with your name and your title, and the story angle almost always suggests that it was this organization that initiated it. And that can be very problematic, either from a liability perspective or just from a reputation perspective. So hopefully we don't run into too many of those kinds of instances, but certainly you're not disadvantaged as a citizen of your community to participate in media. We can't control that. We recognize that. The intention of the policy really is just to try to unite the board around items, ensure that there's a process. As Chair Ross mentioned, getting surprised is never fun. And we can only help you if we know about instances as they're coming up. So really that's the intention, but it's certainly not intended to preclude your rights as a citizen of your community.
So just on that note, there have been communications in the past where I'm obviously less than the full board, but in this context, I think I am more than just a citizen. And I know that the kind of halfway point that staff have put forward in the past when I wanted to reach out to my community was, for example, on a bulletin letterhead said Office of the Director for Electoral Area F. So clarity was kind of assured there as to who it was coming from, but it wasn't just as a private citizen, just for context.
As far as the second part of the question, I maybe will just look to Sam Piper around Part 12 matters, Part 14 matters. I'm not certain if identifying Part 14 matters was intended to be exclusive and exhaustive, but just recognizing again that there are some unique topics that would be exclusive to or more of particular interest to EA directors as opposed to the full board. And so recognizing that your elected chair of EASC is often the person who carries forward those issues of advocacy and acts as a representative. But again, in practice, more often what we see is that the chair of the board or the chair of EASC is going to defer to the local elected official where the issue is arising from.
And I'll add in that there was a change with the Part 14 as it was previously listed as Part 26, which is non-existent in or applicable from the current version of the Local Government Act. And I believe there is some historical and purposeful meaning behind that section being included, as it is, those topics would mostly affect EAs compared to board-related matters. And so having the EA chair speak to those matters made the most sense. I do apologize for not considering Part 12. If that's the section you're referring to, I'm happy to take direction on that and add to the policy if that is so desired. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to Director Makahonic, I think was next in line.
Thank you. And yeah, so this, I get, I'm just going to use a couple of examples just for direction. So just an example, recently, I was contacted by a local reporter. They had gotten some information and then they had been up the valley and what the heck is all the logging, and very drama kind of tone that what's going on, is it being logged? And really what it was is fire mitigation. So what I did is I responded and just gave her what it was and that and the contact for forestry. So I didn't feel like I had to let anybody know about that because it was just giving them information about the situation, because I didn't want people thinking it was a clear cut logging going up in the valley. And so, I mean, it was, and she never, what it did is it gave her the information, she could contact forestry, and that was done. But I actually have an interaction, and I get calls and emails from reporters on different items, and I feel like I don't always, you know, this atmospheric river thing is ongoing. And I mean, I've actually provided media training to my residents on that and support them and help set up the media. And I'm a part of it, but and I may be asked to say a word or two, but it really is their story. So that's sort of how I'm focusing that, because it's not my story, it's their story. But am I involved? Yes. I'm talking to CBC, CTV, Global, the Vancouver Sun, whoever, to try and, get awareness to their situation, which is pretty dire. So, and it's an ongoing thing. And if we can get more, and right now we have the, and it's Sean Holman from UVic. He is a professor of journalism, environmental journalism, and we're doing a project. So it is going to be public, and it's going to have the residents saying, and I may have a couple words from me, but this is about an issue that's already happened, and we're just trying to support and empower the residents in their situation. But I don't know if I have to get permission. I mean, I've just been working on this for so long that it's just kind of an ongoing thing. So and I put it in my reports, but I don't know if I'm expected to do something else. So thank you.
Ms. Kinnaman.
Through the chair to Director Makahonic, historically, there has been a desire by this board for us to have a media relations policy to ensure that that the manager of communications has been involved in any media requests and that the chair of the board is the official spokesperson of the board. In most situations, I'm sure that it's not going to present a problem, but unfortunately, we have had multiple instances over the years where not following the proper process and the policy has become a problem. So my recommendation is that when individuals are contacted by the media, that they forward them to the manager of communications. I recognize that in small communities, we all have sometimes longstanding relationships with individuals who also play a lot of different roles in the community, and so one of them happens to be with the media. I don't think that, I mean, we can't address every single instance here in this room today. If it's referring someone to another agency, that's probably something that can easily be done. But I think it would be rather difficult for me to dissect every single inquiry that you get. I would hope that most folks understand the intent of the policy and generally follow it. But if you're just referring a reporter to another agency, then that probably isn't a problem. But in instances where you're going to be named in a story with your title, I think that should be coming to the manager of communications.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Director Facio is next, and then Director Dickey, and then Horn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully support this document. It's a very important document. It protects all of us on the board and also the staff. And, interpretation plays a big part in this. What you may say to a reporter or to whoever you're speaking to, it can be interpreted in a different way. And being an old guy on here, I've been used to this for many years, so you're going to be extremely careful. I like the idea that our CAO here does inform us if there is something that has come up that could be a problem for the board, as she's just indicated, is that she informs all of us to say, if you receive a request from a newspaper or Fred Harding, whatever the name may be, from down the road, please refer it back to the regional district. And I think that's the best course of action here. It's, there's legal ramifications here that could cost the board, the regional district, a lot of money. Coming from a municipality that's faced this and still ongoing, just be careful what you say. And I'm a great believer that the chair speaks for the board, and that if I'm contacted, if I want to reply, I normally just reply, but thank you for your email and the story. So that's just be very careful. That's because what you may say and what's reported, and like the CEO says, you're never a private person if you're an elected official. It's always there at the bottom there, or wherever it may be, whether you're a councillor, a board member, or a mayor. You're still an elected official, and that's what's going to be put down. So the policy is fine. I think let's move forward and call the question. Thank you.
Well, I just have a couple more speakers first. Director Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just following up on Director Davidson's concerns regarding the EA chair being a spokesperson for land use and planning, but also for bylaw enforcement. So thank you, Ms. Piper, for this great report you put together. Did you want to speak to that at this time, or would you prefer that to go back and develop further policy regarding to that?
Ms. Piper, did you wish to swear Ms. Kinnaman?
What? Just looking at all the lights. You want me to speak to it? I'm happy to go back to the drawing board and bring back a revised version for the board meeting if you prefer.
Okay, that's fine.
If I can just interject though, just to remind the committee, There are more bylaws than just bylaws that happen in the electoral areas. And so some of the bylaw media inquiries that we might get relate to animal control. So I don't know that the EASC chair necessarily would be the best spokesperson for all animal control media inquiries.
I would say the existing electoral area chair certainly is not interested in those responsibilities. But I would be happy to limit the bylaw enforcement issues to electoral area bylaw enforcement issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Horn.
I have been in the same position as some of the folks who started this dialogue and wondering whether or not policy was going to stifle me. And now having the role as a mayor, I understand it, I think, better. First of all, that consultation process is not asking for permission, but asking first, as Director Davidson said, for helpful tips like he got from Ms. Piper, and helping to ensure that there was a consistent and solid message coming out of your governance body. Because there are a lot of tools and tips, and I've had the blessing or curse, I suppose, of being on both sides of communications. And one thing that I've come to understand is that you can go out and try to carefully curate your message, speaking before a camera for 5 minutes or whatever amount of time. And you have absolutely no control over what portion of that presentation is going to show up. And so I have been put in the position, for example, by interviewers where they wanted to pit me against another elected official in our region or on our council. And I have simply worked with the person who had, if somebody had reached out to me and they showed me the consideration and respect of saying they had received this inquiry, we talked about how to best convey that with demonstration that we were overarchingly respectful and working together, and that our differences were not the biggest part of the story. And so, as I've seen Chair Ross do, most of the time it ends up looking like simply saying, no, you go ahead, as opposed to somebody saying, no, you shouldn't speak on behalf. And so I would just consider it an act of consideration and partnership, not an act trying to stifle anybody. And I have not yet seen any instances here or anyplace else in our local governments that look differently than that assessment.
Thank you. Director Davidson, your hand was up and then it went down. So you're good?
Thank you, Chair. I would just suggest then the policy that under the section says procedure, if it was just softened slightly to something like recommended procedure, that would sort of resolve any kind of concerns I might have. I've heard, a lot of talk about taking it literally or interpretation or whatever. I have this vague concern that this might be held as a standard, and some event would happen that was kind of held. Well, you didn't follow procedure, so this is on you. I think it's all very unlikely. I agree with everything that's been said about reaching out for consultation and for help. It makes perfect sense. I'm just trying to allow for the scenario where, for whatever reason, somebody like myself is not aligned with the board, and how that handles. But I think we'll be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other speakers, I will call the question. All in favor? Doesn't look like anyone's opposed. All right, motion's carried. Next item.
Moving down to item 10 for reports by directors.
Anyone? No? Director Pranger. Oh, your mic went off again. It's weird.
Just want to thank the Chilliwack Plowing Society for a wonderful day and for congratulating Director Popoff for plowing us under. Just congrats, and it was a fun time, and very, very many people. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
I was devastated. I couldn't participate. I was asked to, but I was in Mexico still, so I couldn't. So couldn't defend
You're
my
plowing
name.
through margaritas.
Right.
So you lost the distinguished title then.
I'll get it back. Right, Director Horn.
This is a tangential way of getting something on the agenda, I suppose. The City of Mission wanted to participate in the budget consultation for 2026. And I'll point out to the directors here for this committee that the window to participate as an active participant closes at 2 p.m. tomorrow. The closest venue for in-person consultation for budget 2026 is Surrey. There will be an opportunity to write, and that's how Mission has chosen to go about it. In June, there'll be an opportunity to collate the feedback from our council. I state all that as a way of sort of bringing it to the attention of this board and whether or not, for example, this committee, if we wanted even to hold a space for a Surrey session, we would need to give our staff indication that we wanted to do that before 2 p.m. tomorrow. And if we chose to handle something through a written format, then so be it. And maybe not at all. I mean, really what we've done intergovernmental committee-wise is ask for investments that support complete communities. And that's probably the overarching feedback I'm receiving at the local level. But I note that FCM has basically taken on a similar approach. I know that the BCRPA has asked for investments in recreational infrastructure. So I just wanted to make that alive to everybody in this group, whether we are pestering as individual municipal leaders or electoral leaders, or whether we're pestering as a group as an entirety. I will say, and I'm speaking just as an individual here, that I'm troubled by a trend that looks to me like provincial austerity, which is fine, except that at the same time as we're seeing sort of this ambition to reduce funding, we're also saying, hey, but tackle these major strategic priorities across the province, such as housing and healthcare enhancements and a whole bunch of other things. So I think there's a disconnect there in terms of whether or not the ambitions of the provincial government are realistic if the resourcing isn't going to be there. So I'd strayed into a personal opinion there, but I think it's what I'm hearing from my colleagues. And I just wanted to help folks remember that if they have an opinion, if we want to be there in person, we need to indicate that and make that call before 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you. And I just realized how terribly ungracious I was. I should have congratulated Mayor Popoff. Instead, I go on to this tirade how I couldn't participate. Congratulations and well done. All right, next item, please.
So I think actually Director Makahonic has.
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Makahonic.
Yeah, so thank you. I just wanted to bring to attention some concerns in Area E with the displacement of homeless from Sawali-land. We have a pretty urgent situation out in the valley, and it involves safety of residents. So in the last week, we have had numerous serious incidents include a nearby mobile home park that houses mostly seniors and young families, 4 families having their freezers broken into and all their food taken, unwanted persons trespassing on their personal property, rummaging through their belongings, stealing items, damaging yards and shrubbery, a single homeowner with children having a person come onto his property and threatening them, serious damage with trees being cut down with chainsaws and other such incidents affecting the safety of people in the Chilliwack River Valley and our precious ecosystems, water, fish, and wildlife. I've got a potential meeting set up with the acting superintendent with the RCMP. I've spoken briefly to Director Popoff and want to be speaking with Director Smith. I've got a letter that is about 3/4 of the way complete, drafted to ministries on this, and with some potential solutions. And I just think that we have really worked hard to make a difference in the last year and a half in particular, and now all of that work is really in jeopardy. So McFall Road in the Chilliwack River Valley is just a little ways up, if you're familiar with the area, on the way store. So there was one camp there. There are now 7. This is in very close proximity to a bus stop that children get on and off every day, and very close proximity to residents' homes with a lot of children and families. So it's a real big concern. My phone's been ringing off the hook. So I'd like to bring this to the attention so that people know that what we're dealing with out there, and that I'm sending out today, at the end of the day, an email to all the residents with numbers if they run into trouble for the RCMP, DFO, RAP line, and Ministry of Forests, and that everyone calls in. So doing what I can, but as the director for the area, but this is a bigger problem provincially and locally here in Chilliwack, and I'm just at the stage where I don't think it's a solution to be bringing in supports for homeless. I think we need to find someplace safe for them to go to that is not impacting people's safety. So that's where I'm at, and I just wanted to share that with you, and I appreciate any support I can get, and thank you.
All right. Doesn't look like anyone else. Move on to the next item.
We'll just turn things over to our Deputy Corporate Officer, Lauren Olenek, for public question period for items relevant to the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. We do not have any members of the public joining us online or in person, and we have not received any written correspondence.
Okay. So looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
Mover.
Madam Chair.
Director Facio, seconded by Director Smith. All in favor? Motion's carried. Next item.
Okay, so we'll just give us a couple of minutes to close the room.